Hello, it's me, Emily, and you're listening to the Right on Track podcast.
Hello there, and welcome to Right on Track, the podcast that talks about everything Thomas the Tank Engine and railways. And in this chapter, we have two fresh voices reviewing the television series.
We have the culprit, it's the signalman.
It's definitely the signalman. That's not Percy's fault. That signalman should have been told off.
Mike O'Donnell joins us for a chat about his new album.
I noticed that there was a lot of people doing the themes and putting it out on YouTube and things like that. And I thought, well, why don't I do it? Because why not?
And Lachlan Kyle has his own interview with another special guest.
Because when I was a kid, Hornby Thomases, while they looked a little different, it was like seeing a representation of Thomas or the Thomas characters that were on this realistic of like a level reminded me of the show so much that thought process of like, wow, like this looks accurate was there.
My name is Tom Parry, and this is the second episode in a row I've anchored, and it is a delight to be back in the role. First up today, we're going to be doing our reviews of the television series, only it's not going to be myself who's doing it, or Connor, or Denham, or even Lachlan or Em. It is going to be Isaac and J Racer.
Hello everybody, and welcome to the review section of the podcast, the time where we discuss Series 8 of Thomas and Friends. Just before we get into the reviews, I would like to just introduce myself a little bit. My name is Isaac, and I'm on the web and social design team here at Right on Track. So you guys might also be wondering why you hear this different voice this time around. Well, unfortunately, Denham was unable to make it due to last-minute conflicting schedules, and has asked me to quickly fill in for him. So please excuse me and bear with me if my opinions and thoughts don't sound as fully prepared and composed as some of the other reviewers on the podcast. Anyhow, we're going to push through, and I for one am very excited to be reviewing these episodes because we have yet another special guest joining us. Joining me in today's review, I have none other than Jay, or otherwise known as J Racer 11. Hello Jay, how are you?
Hello. I'm doing very well. A lot cooler today than yesterday, but I'm doing well and happy to be here.
That's good to hear, Jay, and that's great to have you. So before we start the review, Jay, tell us about how you got into Thomas, and what do you do in the fandom these days?
How I got into Thomas, I can't really give specifics, just one day Thomas was there and it just sort of showed up. Back in the day, early 2000s, you had Nick Jr. when you sort of got a mixture of season 8, the earlier seasons, 6 and 7. So I had a wide range of Thomas episodes to watch. And then, sort of as I got older, I just sort of fell out with it. But back in 2018, I got my first gaming PC, and I came back to the fandom starting with Trains content. I originally started making Trains routes. I've been doing that sort of ever since. I currently work on iOS projects, so Island of Soda projects, such as the Soda Workshop one that's currently ongoing, and my fellow Aussie Curtis, Mr. Legoman 86's iOS, the hybrid iOS as well. I do a bit more as well. I do some model train, do some videos. I'm a bit all over the place.
Nah, that's all good. Like, it's good to sort of have your sort of
range.
Yeah, it's good to have that. It's good to have that like range, like not just on the train side, but also like on other things as well. And I've noticed that you're a bit of a model train buff. Am I right in saying that?
Yes. Back in last year, I got back into it. Bought my first train set since I was a child, and I've sort of cut the bug again. I now model Soda, so the railway series. So I currently have a Donald, a Douglas, Duck, Oliver, the little Western duo. Donald's not finished yet, but Douglas is. And then I've got Percy, and I've got a few more coming. Some might be revealed at Audrey X. You never know. But yeah, I do physical models and virtual models.
That's awesome. It's like you get the best of both worlds, and that's awesome.
Definitely.
Yeah, so should we get into reviews then?
Yes, I think we shall.
Yeah. But also, before we do, I wanted to ask you this question. Who is your favorite engine, and what is your favorite episode?
So my favorite engine, I think this is going to be a bit of an odd one, but is Derek for diesel engine. My favorite class 17, and my favorite episode is for Fogman. That just the intro of the Fogman, you can't beat it.
Oh, 100%. I love the just the fogginess, or like just the use of the fog effects in that episode. Like it's really mesmerizing, I feel.
It's a very nice episode. One of the best, I'd say.
So I think we should get started and go into the episodes.
I think we shall.
So in today's installment, we'll be continuing our review of Series 8 with Percy's Big Mistake and Thomas, Emily, and the Snowplow. So first up is Percy's Big Mistake, and in the clip we're about to show you, Percy returns to the shed after a big day and overhears the Fat Controller talking to his engine crew.
Percy returned to Tidmouth Sheds. The other engines were already asleep. Then Percy heard voices on the other side of the sheds. It was the Fat Controller, and he was talking to Percy's driver. Percy tried not to listen, but he couldn't help himself. "Percy has been late too often this week," said the Fat Controller. "He must go to the scrapyards tomorrow." "The Fat Controller wants to scrap me," gasped Percy. Percy worried all night long.
So Jay, can you tell us about what Percy's Big Mistake is about and what it entails?
Well, Percy's a very busy engine on the island with many jobs to do, perhaps too many. As his workload increases, it makes him quite late, and one evening he arrives at Brendam Docks, and the dock manager tells him that he's been late too many times, and he's going to tell the Fat Controller about him being late. Poor Percy arrived back to Tidmouth Sheds that evening, and as he's there, he overhears the Fat Controller talking to his driver. He can't help but listen, and the Fat Controller apparently says what Percy hears is Percy must go to the scrapyard tomorrow, which frightens Percy a bit. He's a bit worried that he's going to be scrapped, and he jumps to that conclusion quite quickly because he's been late so many times, and he really genuinely thinks he's going to be scrapped.
Yeah, that's a very good summary, and I really like this episode as well. Like, I like how also I love how Thomas just tries to comfort him in the when he's in trouble, and he's like, "Don't worry, the Fat Controller's never going to scrap you." And I kind of like that, like Thomas and Percy's little dynamic. It shows up again in this episode, and I honestly find it like not really forced in, but I kind of like it's not forced, but I do think it's very sort of relevant here, and I think it's really sweet. I think it's really cute.
It's nice. It's very rare. Well, if we're talking about classic series, that Thomas is nice to Percy. I would expect him to laugh at him, but in this instance, he's quite nice and thoughtful, which is quite the change in their relationship, especially in this season.
Yeah, definitely. And honestly, though, I'll put this in. I do think this feels like a bit of a. I feel like one thing not just about this episode, but the whole of Series 8, it kind of feels like the characters go back and forth a little bit in terms of like how they act, because like I think the episode that was reviewed before, which was Thomas to the Rescue, Thomas sort of feels a bit of a weak, a like, I don't know, he feels a bit babyish, like he doesn't feel like he's like spineless, doesn't have a backbone or something, or he just doesn't he just doesn't have any like, but over here he kind of feels like genuine, and he feels like I don't know how to explain it, but he sort of feels like his character sort of like goes back to him being a nice character, sort of. Not to say he was like nice in the original series, but he definitely feels like he hasn't regressed he hasn't regressed to his character. Like, he feels like he's like rightfully like a grown character in this episode.
Definitely, there is obviously with season 8 going back to basics. The characters were the characteristics and how they are have changed a lot. As I mentioned before, if we were talking about the Railway series, Thomas, he would have just laughed in Percy's face. Maybe even the earlier seasons would have done the same. But this Thomas is quite, at least he's sort of the main character now, so he has to be this purring figure that make sure his friends are all right, especially when it comes to the start of the episode, and then obviously at the end where he goes and finds him and tries to make sure he's okay. But the Fat Controller, it is a bit of a personality jump.
Yeah, it is a bit, but honestly, I do feel like this personality jump, I think, fits in with this in this episode as well, and kind of it's really good to see, honestly.
It definitely is. Yeah. But on the other hand, Percy has a bit of a personality shift as well. He goes from, if we're going to season 6 and 7, this shouty, very angry little gremlin to this sort of kid-appealed child character.
Yeah, he does too.
He's very scared. He's very. I don't know. He's a bit of a wimp. I don't know if that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, bit of a.
But he's very.
Bit of a wuss.
Bit of a. Yeah, he's a bit of a wuss in this one. He's not very bright. He doesn't really think. He just overhears a conversation out of context and goes, right, I'm going to be scrapped, and sort of panics.
So even though Thomas does comfort him, Percy still thinks he's going to be scrapped, which does lead into Percy's plight to not be scrapped. So he goes to the docks to see Cranky, then goes to the docks to collect some pipes, but pulls away too fast and loses the pipes on the way to the shunting yard. So,
definitely, it's quite the predicament. I'm not sure how he didn't hear everything falling off his truck.
Exactly.
But, I think he's a bit too focused on not being scrapped, as mentioned before.
Yeah,
and he doesn't really pay attention to his jobs. He's just, I need to get this done as quickly as possible, so then I'm not scrapped and I can still work on the railway.
Yeah, but what perplexes me though a little bit is like, how can Percy not like hear a bang of the pipes falling on the tracks and then go like, oh, what's that noise? Oh no, it's my pipes. They've gone off. Like what? Like, why isn't he looking back and just like, oh, I need to do my job properly? Like, he just ignore. Well, it's not like he ignores it because he's too focused, like you said. But I don't know. It perplexes me a little bit how he just doesn't, like, he's kind of oblivious to it.
Yeah, he's just. I think he's just like you said. He's not the brightest one in this episode. So he's just not really paying attention and just decide. He might have even heard something and gone, nah, I'm just going to ignore it. I need to get to my destination.
Yeah, that makes sense. That could be it. But
yeah.
And Percy's next job is to push a train of tar wagons. And just like before, he is in such a rush to get the job done that he doesn't focus on his speed, and he unfortunately crashes into Gordon, who's pulling the express. And I don't know how many times this has happened, but Gordon has been put through the ringer throughout the series with so many crashes. Like, I feel sorry for him.
Yeah, he's very unlucky in that sense. He's very accident prone, which shouldn't really be happening considering he's the express engine.
Yeah.
But to go along with that, it says what the brake van goes one way and the train goes the other. But the only way that could happen is if the signalman changed the points.
Yes.
So we've got a bit of a destructive signalman on our hands.
We have the culprit. It's the signalman.
It's definitely the signalman. That's not Percy's fault. That signalman should have been told off.
Exactly. Like, especially you cause the express to just stop. Like, after an engine's just been through a wreck. Like, yep, that he should be reprimanded. That's poor management.
Definitely.
On his part. Yeah. And also, this
need some extra training.
Some more. Oh, don't. That was a good one. Though. Like, training.
Yeah.
Also,
help myself.
that's all good. Also, what I also just was reminded of that same thing happening in Something Fishy. I think that's the title's name, where Thomas falls off the pier, where his brake van goes one way, or actually his train goes one way, and then Thomas goes off the pier, or something. So I don't know. It's kind of. I wonder if that's like a callback, if that was done as a callback to that episode. I'm not too sure, but
We've definitely got some Sigmund sabotaging the railway on our hands.
yeah, I remember. Yeah, it's like they try to put the engines in accidents just so they can repair it, just so they have a source of income.
Definitely.
I'm just trying to figure out. We did talk about Gordon's crash, and also another thing that was interesting is when Gordon's like, "Look what you've done," and then Percy's like, and Percy thinks he knows what he meant. Like, I don't know. Part of me was like, did Gordon hear what the Fat Controller said to him? Like, surely he could have helped in that scenario or something, or could have straightened it out with him if. But then again, it's just the narrator saying something. It wasn't Percy saying anything.
Gordon up to his old tricks again, scaring the little engines as usual.
True. So then, so the Fat Controller then comes to inspect the damage, but not before Harvey comes back. Not before Harvey comes to clear up the mess. Always good to see Harvey.
It is. It's lovely to see Harvey again. His rare appearances.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, and also Cranky as well was a good callback, a good appearance as well. So
yeah, we got a few characters in this one, not just the Steam team. We got some extras as well.
Yeah, and I think I can assure you that this won't be the last time that recurring characters will appear in Season 8. Like, that's why I kind of like Season 8 a little bit. It's sort of littered with all these characters that we know and love, while still focusing on the Steam team. Like, that's just my unpopular opinion a little bit.
Considering it is a bit of a soft reboot for the franchise, they do bring a lot of the other characters in.
Yeah, definitely.
Ones you don't really see too much.
Yep, and then the Fat Controller comes to ask Gordon where did Percy go, and Gordon doesn't know. So then Thomas tells the Fat Controller what Percy told him that he thought he said, that he was going to get scrapped, and then the Fat Controller goes, "Okay, I think I might have to straighten things out with him. I need to explain myself to him." And because Percy ran off, no one knows where he is, so they all have to look for him. And honestly, this is probably where I see probably the most effective use of the camera angles this season. Like, you get some high-angle shots. Sorry, not high angles. You get some low-angle shots where you see Harvey going over the bridge, and then you see a high-angle shot when you're looking down at James as he crosses through Wellsworth. And I love that shot where it shows where it goes through.
From the yard perspective, where you're going between the trucks and the coaches.
Yeah, I love that shot.
It is. It's very nice. It's just Soda really likes to when an engine goes missing to pull everyone off the service trains and go on a wild goose chase.
Yeah, it's like I feel like, I kind of did mention this in an episode before, where it's like it kind of feels like a heritage line where not many things are at stake if the engines do sort of go off and do their own thing. Because if this was set in the classic series, like, this wouldn't fly, honestly. Like, the engines would still have to there's still jobs that need to be done, so it's not like the Fat Controller put out and like an all points bulletin say everyone must look for Percy, drop what you're doing and start looking for him.
Imagine like you're on a train, you're on a passenger train. Next thing you know, you hear an announcement that your train's leaving to find a locomotive that's gone missing. I wouldn't be too pleased.
Oh no, I'd be pretty mad. Honestly, I'd be pretty disgruntled if that was the case. But yeah, I'd hate to be a passenger on Sodor in Season 8.
Oh no, it'd definitely be a trip to remember,
and not a good one.
No, not at all.
Yeah. But what shot I do like is the one after that, that moving shot where we actually see Percy sort of alone in the shed, and then the camera just zooms out, and we just see like him being very small and just very sad, and Like, you really feel for... I feel like that sort of brings home the fact that Percy's... It really brings home the fact how scared... It really brings home how scared Percy is. And, like, how far he's, like, sort of gone to try and do what he thinks won't get him scrapped, but he's just... I don't know. That shot has a lot of symbolism in it, and I just love that.
It reminds me of those memes you get where it's like the old music, like da 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 da. Just feels like that when it pulls out, like this is the end for Percy.
Oh.
It really does make you really feel like that.
Oh no! I was gonna say, imagine if someone did a cut of that episode where they just as the camera zooms out, you hear the dun dun dun.
Yeah.
Dun, oh man.
Oh no! Poor Percy.
Just ends with Percy being sad, and then dun 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 dun.
It reminds me of the Boulder episode where they just cut to the happy music just straight away.
Oh, that would be the most jarring thing ever.
It would be, definitely.
So then, when all the engines go looking for Percy, Thomas then has the idea to check back at the engine shed. But one thing I also noticed in this one was that then when they show the shot of Thomas going up his branch line, they actually show the Fat Controller's head in his cab. Like, they put a smaller figurine in his cab. Like, they don't use the large scale model.
No, we don't see the Fat Controller, or the small scale one anyway, in any engine's cabs very often. But this is where it sort of becomes more of a norm, where he will travel on an engine to get to another engine to tell them off.
Definitely, it's like, I mean, he does make good use of his resources. I mean, like, if he needs to get somewhere, why not just catch the train?
Yeah, I mean, if he's got a railway, he might as well use it himself.
Exactly, but then that does beg the question, does he ever use his car or something? Or, like, is his car just sitting in the garage where he's just not being used because he has his trains now?
Probably. A bit of both. I guess it depends on where he's going or what he's doing.
Fair enough. Oh, man, but yeah, it does get a bit repetitive at times where they have to show the Fat Controller always being there by train, but then again, there's not really other ways you could do it.
Yep. No, there isn't. But yeah,
and then so Thomas then goes back to Tidmouth Sheds and finds Percy all alone in the sheds, and then Percy emerges forward and tells the Fat Controller what he's been told. He tells him the whole story, what he's been trying to do. He only got part of what he was trying to say to Percy's driver, and basically what the Fat Controller really said was that, because he had so much jobs to do, like working at the docks, working at the quarry, and then taking the mail, like all of that was making him late because of his so many jobs. And so the Fat Controller then decides to give Percy the mail run for a whole week.
He gets his nice reward for all his hard work, and it ends very nicely considering what Percy thought was going to happen to him.
So I was like, oh, whew. Like, I feel like Percy would have been... I love how Percy just feels very relieved in this. Like, what you thought was going to happen was actually something really good. Like, you get to do your favorite job for a whole week. Like, in Percy's point of view, you'd sort of feel like, oh, the tables have turned. Yes,
they definitely have the table. Those tables have definitely turned.
And yeah, Percy's really happy about it. And I love how Thomas and Percy both like whistling together. It kind of shows like them being best friends again. Like, I don't know, it's really sweet that they do that.
It is. He gets his reward, everyone's happy, and the end, essentially.
Yeah, that's the end of the episode.
Yeah.
I will say the moral is actually, I think the moral of the story, I think, is kind of like, it's not as basic a little bit as some morals in other episodes. It's like don't take pieces of limited information as they are, but if you don't know what that means, you sort of like take it with a grain of salt a little bit. So I do think the moral is like, I feel like it's something we all can relate to, I think. Like, no matter what age.
Don't take things out of context, or always make sure you have all the information before you decide something.
Yeah, definitely.
Because obviously Percy didn't hear it correctly, and he instantly thought, "Oh, I'm going to get scrapped." But if he was properly listening or just listened for a bit longer, he probably would have avoided that entire situation.
Yep, and also, before we get on to the ratings, did you have anything else you wanted to say about this episode?
I do. There's one thing I'd like to mention. It's a bit of a production goof. Basically, when there's a shot of Percy leaving the sheds, and what they've done is what they do, as you can see, they drill holes in the set to so the smoke can come up, and they've done that at Tidmouth Sheds, but you can just see this hole in the track before Percy goes over it. It's just a massive sinkhole in the track, which I find a bit funny.
Yeah, I did not notice that like when I watched it, but then when I watched this episode again, like for this episode of the podcast, I was just looking at it and be like, oh wow, I can't believe I didn't notice that.
Yeah, you notice bits and pieces once you start watching an hour and again. I'm a bit interested in the production of the show. You sort of see these little goofs here and there. Exactly.
It's like one of those things where you see it, you just can't unsee it. Like it's really interesting. Also, there is also another goof that you might have noticed. When the narrator says that Percy has a lot of jobs to do, and you see him puffing through with the mail train, you can actually see that he is using Thomas's tired face mask. He has his tired.
Oh
face
yeah,
mask
he
on.
is. He is.
Yeah, it's been used.
The good old swapping face.
Oh man. And yeah, it's done so many times. Like it's interesting to just like see the engines go by and be like, aha, that's not his face. That's his other engine's face.
Yeah, you'd think by now they would have got it a bit down now, and they wouldn't confuse the faces. You sort of get it in the earlier seasons because obviously they don't know the characters that well. But you sort of get it throughout the hit era, where you see different characters wearing other characters' faces, and it's a little odd. It's funny, but just one of those things with production.
Yeah, so let's move. So how about we move on to the ratings then?
Yes, we shall.
Do you want to give your ratings first, or should I?
Well, you first.
So for me, I think I'll give this episode a 7 out of 10. It's not one of the greater episodes of Series 8, but it does definitely feel like one that's a little bit, in like all the episodes, it does feel like one of the more memorable, but not. It's like a bit of a mid sort of episode for me, but yeah, just seeing like Percy just not really being that much in character, and just I don't know, it does sort of bring down the story for me, but then compared to all the good stuff, we see, the more complex moral, and we see Thomas and Percy's friendship play out. I do think this episode does hit more than it does miss. So yeah, I think a 7 out of 10 is appropriate for me at least. So Jay, what about you?
Personally, I'd give it a 5.5 out of 10. It's 5.5, not the great. Wow. Yeah, it's not the greatest episode in the world, I'll be honest. It messes with Percy's sort of personality previously. It turns into this sort of kid appeal character is the best I'd say. He's that little kid that gets scared all the time, and it's not really Percy, is it?
No,
it's not like Percy to overhear conversations and then be scared so much, which leads to accidents and stuff like that. I'd be honest, the crashes are all right. They're good, but for me personally, it's a very generic episode, because in Series 8 we get a lot of threats of scrap, weirdly, in this season, and it's just added to that list, and it just isn't really that exciting to me personally.
Yeah, I do agree with you there. Like it does sort of feel like they're trying to put them in for the sake of it, like not that it sort of helps the story a little bit, so it kind of feels like a bit, I don't know, what's the word, like it sort of feels a bit, half-assed or something, like.
Yeah, it's not really a Percy episode, personally.
Really? I don't know. Just like, I thought it was a Percy episode. Like, what would you think what episode do you think this would have been about?
I think it would fit someone more like maybe Bill or Ben, or maybe even someone like Fergus, because Fergus is good at being scrapped.
That would
But
make a
for
lot of sense.
Percy, but then again, with the new personality and the direction that they were going for the hit era, it does work for what they were going for. But for me personally, no, it doesn't work. I'm not the biggest fan of this episode, but it does have some merits.
Yeah, it does too. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just slightly generous because like I grew up with season 8. Maybe that's just my nostalgia kicking in.
Maybe not. You never know.
Oh, so thank you very much, Jay. So next, do you think you can tell us what we'll be discussing next?
Yeah. So the next episode we'll be discussing is Thomas, Emily, and the Snowplow. And in this clip, we're going to show Thomas is happily at work with Annie and Clarabelle when he meets Emily. But when she sees Thomas, she gets some ideas of her own.
Thomas was enjoying pulling Annie and Clarabelle. He thought he was doing a grand job. But Emily had other ideas. She thought he could be doing an even grander job. So Emily decided to help Thomas by telling him what he was doing wrong. When she saw him puffing down the branch line, she cried out, "Slow down, you are going too fast and bumping your passengers."
So Isaac, tell us about what happens in Thomas, Emily, and the Snowplow.
Yeah, so it's a snowy day on the island of Sodor, and Thomas and Emily are doing their jobs. Thomas is doing a good job, but Emily doesn't agree. She doesn't think the same. So she decides to, quote-unquote, help Thomas by telling him what he's doing wrong. First, she tells him to slow down when he passes her at the coal tipper, and tells him not to talk to children when he takes on more water, as they will make him late. Thomas sees that as Emily is trying to help, but still he thinks that she is being a bit too bossy for him. So she decides to ignore her from this point on.
What are your thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, I think this episode is it's interesting. Like, it doesn't really do it. It's not a bad episode, but it's sort of it's forgettable in terms of like the story, but it's honestly memorable just because it's one of the episodes where it's snowing. Like, everyone remembers the episodes where it snows on the island because it just looks so good.
Yeah, the era sets do lend quite well to snowy countryside.
Yeah, definitely. It honestly looks really magical, honestly. Like, I feel like it is probably on par with the classic series and those Christmas special episodes.
Definitely, yeah. There is quite some good set design in this episode, considering there's not many sets used, but they've done well with what they had.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so Emily is, and also one thing I have noticed about this episode is Emily's somewhat new character revamp. Like, she sort of seems a bit more of a bossy type of character. Like,
So the previous season we got introduced to her, and she was a very nice engine. She was helpful. But then, obviously, once Hit Entertainment came in and we had season 8, there's been a personality shift for Emily, which I do think works because there was only a season beforehand and she only had a handful of episodes, so you could sort of do what you want with Emily's character. And I quite like the bossy side of Emily. It's nice to have a female character that's not just nice. They're a bit bossy, they've got a bit of attitude. It can be a bit of a pain sometimes, but I do think it does really lend well to her personality.
Definitely, yeah. I definitely agree. Like, it does sort of give more flavor to her character. Like, definitely more of a diverse change than some of the other happy-go-lucky characters that are just like happy and there's nothing else going on for them. So, on the other hand, it's a nice, refreshing change. I do agree. But Thomas doesn't really take it that way. Like, she doesn't like. He just thinks she's too bossy and just chooses not to listen to her ever again. So there.
Yeah, Thomas is very headstrong in this episode. Reminds me of his personality from the books. he's very he doesn't listen. He's a bit cocky, which inevitably ends up with him in trouble at the end of the episode.
Yeah, definitely. No, definitely. I do think this is sort of a consistent. Like Thomas's character is very consistent in this episode, and yeah, I feel like it is nice. It is good to. I feel like I always loved seeing Thomas like just standing up for himself or being headstrong, like you said. So I don't know. It's just nice to see Thomas just sort of bantering with the other engines, especially when they're directed at him, and he's just like, you know what? He just chooses not to listen to her. Like I do kind of like that.
Definitely, Thomas and Emily's personalities sort of clash here, and it works really well. You've got sort of Emily being this bossy, I don't know, sort of mother type of character to Thomas, telling him what to do, and Thomas is like this sort of is the kid that just doesn't want to listen. He doesn't want to listen to her. She's just this bossy boiler, and he just wants to do what he wants to do.
Yeah, it is sort of like it does sort of feels like it's a mother and a child, where you just have the child that just like is rebellious and doesn't want to do anything, and doesn't like the child's rebellious, and then the mother just like telling him what to do, and just the child thinking is just very bossy. But yeah, I do sort of see that dynamic as well.
So we start off with Emily. We sort of get a reintroduction to Emily and her character. We're told that she's a bit bossy, and she starts bossing Thomas around. Thomas doesn't like it very much. He's like, "Oh, I don't want to listen to you. You're a bossy boiler." And the next day, he wakes up early, and it's starting to snow. And he goes off to do his thing. The Fat Controller then tells Emily to, "You need to go find Thomas. And he needs to wear his snowplow." And we all know Thomas doesn't like his snowplow, not one bit.
Exactly. He does not want to do it, especially when it's Emily telling him to do it.
Yeah.
But that's not what the Fat Controller tells Emily specifically, though, is it?
No, she doesn't let on that the Fat Controller has told her to tell him. Thomas just assumes that Emily's telling him to do it, and because Emily's telling him to do it, he's like, "No, I don't want to do it." Like a kid going, "No, I don't want to do it." No, and it sort of ends up in his downfall a bit because the sky turns grey, it starts snowing, and he ends up stranded at a signal box, and Emily has to save him, which he's not very happy about that. And then they both return home, and the Fat Controller asks, "Oh, why didn't you do it?" And he's like, it came from you. I thought Emily was telling me to do it." And the Fat Controller finally realizes what's going on, and they both get the short end of the stick. They both get told off for doing wrong, but they make up at the end of the episode. Thomas gets his snowplow fitted, and they make up, and all is well on the island of Sodor at the end.
Yeah, definitely. Like I do like that episode. This episode is very yeah, I do like this episode a lot. And one thing I actually do like about it is one thing I do want to bring up about this episode is that I feel like it definitely also takes advantage of sort of like the music, sort of. I do think Robert Hartshorn's music is very strong in this episode, I feel. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I like it. I'm not the biggest fan because obviously we had Mike and Junior last season.
Yeah.
And now we've gone to this new composer. But most of the themes in this I enjoyed. I would have preferred a more livelier music as we've had before, but I think it works for this episode.
Yeah, I think it does too. Especially like I do like that little thing when the like when the snowflakes start to fall. Like I do kind of like those little sound cues a little bit. Like I don't know.
The little ditties that he does, like da 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 da.
Oh yeah,
sort of like that.
Yeah, I do love those ditties. Those ones are so good. I feel like it is on par with the classic series though, like somewhat. Even though the other themes don't. Even though Robert Hartshorn's work is is drastically different from that of the classic series. But yeah, it's just little gems like that.
But he does well with what he has. Moving on a little bit, I want to talk about a bit of the production of this episode.
Yeah, go for it.
Because there's something that you won't unsee.
Okay.
At the start of the episode, they use this 2-track set, and it's used multiple times throughout. It's the same set, just redressed, and as soon as you notice it, you can't unnotice it. The hit era does use a lot of the same sets and just puts trees in different places, which I'm not the biggest fan of. It's sort of annoying when you see the same set
Man.
4-5 times in an episode, and it's just been changed a little bit. It would have been nice to have some other sets, but I understand with, obviously, they've got a year to do this now rather than 2 or 3 they used to have. So it makes sense, but
It's functional at least.
yeah,
Yeah, but
you can tell when stuff has been reused.
Yeah. I'm wondering if there'll be some eagle-eyed people out there that will sort of look at the sets and then can sort of be like, wait, no, that set was used. That set looks familiar. That was used in the other episode, because I do feel like the new production team, I do feel like they're sort of trying to do as many episodes as they can, and like they try and use the same sets a little bit in the one go. So like in the same day, they'll shoot one episode, but then they'll use that same set for a scene from another episode, sort of. So just so they can get all the episodes out in time. Like, I'm thinking maybe that might be the issue. Yeah, that might be
most like, yeah. There's also, if you look at Emily in season 7, she had sort of bronze buffers, and in the hit era they gave her more silvery buffers. Just a little neat sort of trivia fact to point out that her buffers change, and there's other little changes from when they've worked on the prop between seasons.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, I noticed that. Like I do like her shine. I do like that change as well. Also, Emily Snowplow is the first time we see Emily Snowplow, and I'm not impressed. Like
it's just essentially it's a silver snowplow with some green on the side.
Yeah, and I'm just like, how many of them do they have to make just so they can color it, so they can differentiate between each character? Like, I do feel like it is a little lazy, but then again, it's like, it's not like, at least they didn't try and copy and paste it like they did with Thomas's Snowplow, at least.
Because I think characters like Gordon, I think they have a different one compared to Emily and Thomas. So there is some variety, but there isn't a lot of variety.
True. Yeah, but I do like how Thomas's season 1 character was brought back into this. How he doesn't like his his snowplow. Well, one can sort of think that it's a season 1 character kicking in, but really it's just Emily telling him not to wear his snowplow, so he has more of a reason to ignore her.
Thomas just loves ignoring Emily. That's his favourite thing to do.
Exactly.
Especially in this episode. He won't listen to anybody.
Oh, man. And honestly, I do also think that the snow... Yeah, and it does result in him getting into some trouble when he gets stuck next to a signal box and just gets snowed under. And this is... I don't know if you noticed this as well, but... I think they actually use a mix of physical assets and CGI elements, because if you notice, they use like snow to cover up Thomas, but they also use a CGI overlay where it just shows individual snowflakes falling down. Like,
it works. There's a certain shot in there where it's just Thomas passing the camera. And what they've basically done is they've put snow in front of the camera and not on the track. So Thomas is just running on clean tracks, but because of where the snow is, you can't see that, which I think is a clever use of the snow when you haven't got enough to make maybe that level of snow on the set.
Yeah, you can't really tell. It's only if you like look at it like very closely, but at a face level, it does look very seamless. It's a very seamless cut.
It is.
I just love like at the end where Emily finds Thomas. And Thomas is just mad at her. Like after Emily's like, "I told you so," and then Thomas just goes, "Well, you shouldn't have been bossy." And then Emily says this line where it's like, "I am sorry that you didn't listen to me."
She's a bit of a savage in this episode.
Yeah, I feel like Emily's got some attitude there. Like, oh, ouch. She is a savage.
She can fight back when she wants to.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely goes to like it definitely feels like Thomas and Emily's personalities are just really, that's their breaking point nearly. Like it's just at their best. Like it's so fun.
It is. It's nice when the characters don't get along, because that's what the hit you're sort of used to. It's nice when there's a bit of a different dynamic with certain characters.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I do feel like Thomas and Emily's character dynamic here is, I'd argue, is probably the best out of season 8. I don't know, like, or maybe just one of the best. Maybe not the best, but definitely up there, I feel.
Yeah, it is definitely up there.
Yeah, and also one thing I do like how the Fat Controller is just like at the end where Emily and Thomas apologize. Like before that, the Fat Controller just goes, "Now we'll have 2 engines that don't listen." Well, I never. Like, he's now longer not just mad at Thomas, he's also mad at Emily too for not telling him exactly what he said.
No, he's done. He's had enough. It's like, well, I've had enough of you too. Yeah, it's a nice episode. It gets rounded up quite nicely, and I think it's one of the better of the hit era.
I do think so. Yeah, it's definitely one of the memorable episodes, I feel, and definitely something that if I pop it on, then I'll be like, oh, I'll watch it.
Yeah, it's one of those you can just put on in the background if you're doing something or to watch, and I think you would have a nice time with it.
100%. And with that being said, how about we move on to the ratings then? So
I think I'll go first, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it. What would you give it?
I would give it a 7 out of 10.
Ooh, okay.
Just the usage of the snow effects, the personality of Thomas and Emily, the how they interact. I think it's very well written for this episode. It's definitely one of the best written episodes in this season. Felt like there was a lot of care and attention put into this one, and we get a nice little end in it as well, where it's not fully resolved. Emily's like, "Oh, I'll still be a bit bossy," but Tommy's like, "All right, but I just might not listen to you," and it just comes off a bit playful, and I like that.
Yeah, I do too. And that was one of the points I want to talk about. But yeah, I do like how they joke about it. It's really fun.
It is.
So I think I might give this episode I actually didn't have a score put down for this, so I think I might have a think about this. But if I were to give it a score, I think I might give it. Actually, I think I'll probably give it a 7 as well. Honestly, because it's a really great episode. Just seeing Thomas and Emily just going at each other is really fun, and just seeing the snow, seeing Sodor as a Winter Wonderland is always a joy, and I do love the character dynamics. It's just really good. So I feel like that alone, I think, 7 out of 10 for me. It's definitely one of the more memorable episodes of season 8 as a whole.
It is definitely a memorable episode.
And with that, we've come to the end of the episode reviews. And thanks so much, Jay, for joining us on today's podcast. It was great having you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Also, just for all our listeners out there, where can we find your work?
So you can find me on Twitter at jracer11. Specifically, you give me a moment, at j_racer11. You can find me on YouTube at jracer11. I have my train site. Well, my train site I'm a part of, Harwick Enterprises. We have content on there for trains if people are interested in that. And finally, I hope you show your friends my Thomas the Tank channel.
Yes.
Gotta get it on there once. Gotta have it once.
You have it once. Yeah, so yeah, you can find him there. And next time in episode 65, Connor and Parry will be back, and they will be reviewing Emily's New Route and Don't Tell Thomas. So, Jay, it was great having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. And until next time, I'll see you later.
Bye, guys. Bye.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Hi, I'm Mike O'Donnell, one of the composers of the original Thomas the Tank Engine theme, and I'm here to tell you that I have released a selection of re-recorded themes and songs from the classic shows in a series of albums called The Engine Themes. These albums include a variety of classic themes and songs from the original TV series, as well as a few new compositions. You can purchase these albums on CD or digital download, as well as posters and pin badges. Have a look online at modmusic.co.uk. And for a special offer for Right On Track listeners, you can use the special code ROT20 for a 20% discount on all digital downloads. Be sure to enter the code when making your purchase. Thank you for your support and happy listening. Take care and stay safe.
A big thank you to Jay Racer and Isaac for doing the reviews of the television series for us. Normal service shall resume in the next episode. And it's quite ironic that we should be hearing from Mike O'Donnell, because my good friend Tom Denham has lined up another interview with the musical maestro. Why don't we take a listen to that right now?
Mike O'Donnell, fantastic to have you back at Right On Track podcast.
Thank you very much. It's very nice to be back, and glad to talk to you again, Tom.
No, it's always great having you. And the last time we caught up, it's probably about mid-2020, early 2020. You were just putting out your Thomas mixes out into the world. You've been quite busy since the last time we spoke. What have you been up to?
Dodging COVID, for one thing. And, of course, we've had this horrible lockdown situation. So it was a good time to turn the gear on and really sort of produce a few more albums, which is what I've done. So in 2020, would that have been volume 1, the engine themes? So I've done 5 now, and I'm working on another one, volume 6. And yeah, that's what I've been doing. So it's been quite a busy time, but great. I'm enjoying it.
It's a great thing to keep you occupied during a pandemic. And I think by and large, these albums have taken the whole community and consumers by storm. Is it something you've always wanted to do post-Thomas?
I never even thought about it. I noticed that there was a lot of people doing the themes and putting it out on YouTube and things like that. And I thought, well, why don't I do it? Because why not, so to speak? And I didn't think it was going to be as successful as it has. But no, it's gone down really well. And I mean, put it this way, it costs money to make these CDs, so I'm definitely covering my costs. Not by a lot, I understand, but enough to make it worthwhile doing.
Absolutely, and I think I can understand being a creative as well. A part of it is you do it because you enjoy it and you love it, and I think whatever you gain from it, I think you've most likely received lots and lots of affirmations from people who listen to these as well.
Absolutely. I mean, the idea was that the fans never heard the themes on their own, really. It's always covered with narration or sound effects. So I thought it'd be nice to give them a clean version, so to speak. But I had to re-record them all for contractual reasons. But that was part of the fun, really, actually doing it all again and making a few little changes, adding bits and pieces that should have been there in the first place but weren't. No, I've really enjoyed doing it. It's been great.
And you must have revisited countless and countless themes and ditties throughout your whole career on the show. Are there any particular favourites that you've done in this time or that you've re-listened to?
Not really. I mean, obviously they changed over the years. I mean, the early Thomas stuff, Series 1, was very preschool, kids orientated, and it got better and better, as the technology took over in visuals as well. I mean, David was doing some great scenic shots and things like that in Series 3 and 4. And because of new technology on the music side, we were able to recreate better orchestral sounds than we were at the beginning. Because as you probably know, we only had a little Jupiter 6 at the beginning, which was a very synth-based synth. But then you go on to samples and all the rest of it, and it was a great experience for us. I mean, it's gone so much further now, but at the time it was what they would call state of the art, I think.
And it's really, really cool hearing these remastered versions of these themes that many of us have grown up on, and they're taking on new life in these new reorchestrations. But one of the things I particularly love is how you've mashed themes together and you've created new music as well. What brought this about?
Well, it's just like, you're listening to it and you think, actually, this piece of music needs a middle 8. And it was never written before because we didn't have the time. I mean, the whole episode was only 5 minutes long. So, if you had Stepney's theme or whatever's theme, it was only a 30-second piece that was written for the show. So having the luxury of re-recording them now, you think, well, given the time, and I can use as much time as I like, it would be good to have a middle eight in this. It suits it. So that's why I did it. It was purely an artistic decision. I could just do 30-second snippets of themes, but you're filling up a CD. I think people deserve a bit more than that. I mean, I haven't done it to all of them, just some of them that actually it seems to work on. And I'm glad they liked it, the fandom, as they say.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite little details I find listening through to these. It's kind of, it's like discovering hidden treasure that you haven't heard in forever, and it's quite thrilling hearing those for the first time and hearing what this would sound like in a longer version.
I mean, obviously, some of these compositions don't really lend themselves to being lengthened, or they didn't need any bits added. So I pretty much stuck with the original. But as I said, you want to try and make them as enjoyable to the listener as you can, because there are no visuals now, so it's just down to the music, which has been great. No problems there.
And through our previous conversations and through listening to some of your music, there's very evident influences that you've had from the Beatles to the good, the bad, the ugly. But what are some of your musical influences nowadays?
Well, they haven't changed really. I've always been a massive Beatles fan, and I watched Paul McCartney on Glastonbury, and he did like 2.5 hours. And although his voice is a lot weaker now, it's the songs, you can't get away from it. They did some amazing songs, and it was great to see him still up there. I mean, I shouldn't think he's going to carry on much longer, but it was great, and he's got such a great catalogue, so why not? That's what I say.
I was listening to a piece of his music the other day, and it was filmed not too long ago, but something about that particular song kind of took you back to when they would have originally done it as the four of them. When you're not listening or not working so intensively on these CDs, what music do you listen to outside of Thomas?
It's embarrassing to say, but I don't really listen to that much music. I'm in the car and I've got a box of every Beatles album they ever made, plus some other stuff. But so I just keep popping these Beatles albums in the CD player, and it's great. It's great to have a car that you can actually play CDs in as well. They've kind of gone out of fashion now.
And I think there's something about always going back to a classic. It can never be beaten.
Absolutely. I mean, I love, Bonnie Raitt. She's done some great albums, and I've got a couple of hers in the car as well. But that's really about it.
The music is such an important part of Thomas's, I guess, ingredients.
Yeah.
For fans and for people who grew up with it or people who know of it, what do you think makes this such a key part of the show?
I think it was because Junior and I we tried not to make it too kidsy or simplistic. And in fact, if you really listen to it, there's a lot of detail going on. I mean, it took us a lot of time to do these tracks. And, you could have done it just one line and that was it. But I mean, you need to kind of build these things up until they sound what you expect to be good. I think that's the trick of it, because you watch so much stuff now for kids, and it's really, I'm not knocking American composers, but it's very brash and fast. Do you know what I mean? Lots of cuts and all that stuff. But they're doing a great job, and there's no doubt about that. We were lucky because the films that David were producing and Britt, we could do nice orchestral stuff to go along with it when required. Nowadays, it's very fast cuts, and the new Thomas stuff is amazingly fast when you think about it, but I'm sure the kids love it, so it's just a different era now.
And I think, reflecting on that, I think some of my favourite stuff listening to your music is, I think once you get to the last seasons that Britt and David were doing, and you could hear these very deep musical tracks that kind of only have a few elements going on. I think that the episode that comes to mind is the one where the flood washes out and Toby, the tram engine, gets
Toby and the flood, yeah. Well, we were fortunate with that one because you could really go over the top orchestrally, and it was a bit of drama. You didn't really get drama in kids' TV shows, not for that length. I mean, somebody hit the buffers or, whatever. But that was a big sequence, that Toby and the Flood. And the Haunted House as well was another one, or the Haunted Station. It just gave us an opportunity to stretch our legs a bit because, the films deserved it, I think. I think David did a brilliant job on those films, and it was a good thing to be involved in at the time.
Do you find when you're working with Junior on a lot of these themes, was there a lot of riffing or jamming back and forth, or was it very intensely, right, we got X amount of time to do this one, let's push it out as quick as we can? What was the working relationship like?
It was fine. I mean, it was quite intense. In fact, it was very intense. And we'd get a film, on a Monday morning or something. And because of the schedule, we had to finish it by Wednesday afternoon to stay on track, if you excuse the pun. There wasn't a lot of time to debate stuff. We studied the film, made notes, and said, right, let's go. Well, we got to start with a sad version of Percy's theme or something like that, and we just get on and record it, and that's the way it was, And then we the great thing is we built up a stock of music, so we'd have so many different versions, for example, of Percy, which we could reuse if the film demanded it. But a lot of the time, it didn't quite fit, so we had to re-record another one, which was fine. It's not like you had to rewrite it; it was already there. So I think we had to do 2.5 episodes in a week, which sounds like a lot of time, but it's not really when you analyze it all. So, and of course, as always is the case, you always get these films late because the visuals took top priority, and then so our schedule got pushed back and back and back, and in the end you say, well, you've got to give us some time to do these things. But overall it was pretty good. But, you can always use more time. It'd be great to have a week to do one episode, but that's just never going to happen.
Do you find now that you had that quite intense period of time where you had to churn out the amount of music that you mentioned, and now you've come to doing these albums, do you have more time to reflect and ruminate on some of those pieces that you did?
Absolutely. And, with the modern technology now, I mean, I use a program called Cubase. You get the option to go over this stuff again and again and again. And you're thinking, actually, that little clarinet line shouldn't have done that. It should do something else. So you change it. Whereas when you're up against the clock, you don't have time for that system. So you just got to get on with it in the old days. But now, I spend far too much time on these things. I should, and mixing them's a nightmare because you can just keep going over it and over it and tweaking and all the rest of it. It's crazy, really, because there should be other things in life. But you get caught up with it, it's good fun.
That's it. And I think that kind of goes with the creative drive when you find something you can finesse a bit further and you can go deeper.
Yeah. No, I do try and limit it, but, I keep, you file the gear up in the morning and you listen to what you did yesterday and you think, I'm not sure about that bit, you know what I mean? Or that instrument. And in the mixes, that xylophone's too loud. And so you mess around with it. And, there is a lot to be said for just getting on with it and draw a line under these things. But I like, I'm not doing anything else, so I may as well do that.
We could say you were in your stride the whole time that you and Junior were on the show, but was there a particular season that was your favourite to orchestrate for?
I think probably 3 and 4 maybe. It was better visually and we upped our game as well. So it was, they were good seasons really. 5 was a bit darker, wasn't it? That was quite, I think, a bit over dramatic. But 3 and 4, I think, were probably my favourites. Yeah, they were good. They were good storylines and good, amazing visuals. And I think everyone pulled it together. Series 5, I think it was all starting to go a bit downhill then because I think David doing Series 5? He probably did, but he didn't.
Yeah.
He did Series 6, did he?
I think he did up to, might have been 6 or 7 that he did up to.
Yeah, because 7 was our last one, and I don't think he did 7. I think it was Stevie Asquith did that, but I could be wrong. But it was all starting to change. Hit got more involved, so it was kind of, we felt that it was changing, unfortunately.
As you were doing something that was quite, I guess, kind of within its own niche, and obviously there were many other, not just kids shows, but many other TV shows that had unique soundtracks and composers. As you were doing the show, were there any other programs that you drew an eye to that you heard the soundtrack to that music and you went, oh, I like that?
Not really. To tell you the truth, I didn't at the time. The work was so intense, time-wise. We didn't have time to look at other children's programs. I just wanted to go home and have a beer, and get on with life. Because life goes on. You still got all your bills to pay and all the rest of it. So there wasn't a lot of time for research. And same thing applies now. I can't think of any children's stuff that really stands out to me now, musically. I mean, all the composers are great. There's no doubt about that. But it just doesn't. I'm not a 5-year-old anymore, so it wouldn't affect me. And I think the new Thomas show is, for what it is, it's really well done. It's not my cup of tea, but there's lots of kids who love it. So I mean, they're keeping the Thomas brand going, if you like. I mean, yeah. It had to change eventually. You can't carry on doing the same thing for, 20 years. It's got to change.
That's it. I think what's so interesting about children's education and programming is that there's so many trends that go in and out so quickly. And I think shows have the hard job to keep up with that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, with all the political correctness going on, and has been going on for years, really. I mean, in the old days, David would love smashing trains up, and you'd see the accident, but you're not allowed to do that now. They go behind a mountain and the puff of smoke comes up, and that's the accident. But so it's a shame, but I'm the old school, really. So I suppose the young kids, don't want to be frightened in that way.
I think it's very telling in tales that have stood their time. I think it's telling what the kids watch and what the parents are, I guess, watching as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I still get sort of emails and tweets, saying how much they loved it and how much they still like it. I mean, they're not kids, they're parents now themselves. So they like to show them what they were watching. And it stands up. The classic shows still stand up, I think.
Yeah, it does. It does. It was definitely a cut above its time as well.
Absolutely. But it was very expensive to do. And I know the actual visuals were extremely expensive. I suppose CGI is even more expensive, but it doesn't have the same feel to it to me. It's not like a train set. It's, cartoons, really. And I think the kids liked the idea of going to an exhibition or a day out with Thomas, and you see these massive steam trains with a face on them, and you're thinking, it's great, this. The kids are going to love this, and they do, which is all part of the fun, I think.
Yeah, it definitely, I think, revitalised that, I guess, interest in steam trains and railways and model trains, I think, for a generation.
Yeah, absolutely. Long may it last. I love steam trains. You don't see them that often anymore, but every time you see them, I'm talking about real steam trains. Every time you see them on some documentary or something, they just look fantastic to me.
So you're riding on, it's 5 albums now, correct?
Done 5 and started the 6th. I'm not sure there'll be a 7th, but I've started the 6th anyway. Also, my daughter's got 2 children of her own, and her kids love to sing along with the songs, like Little Engines and things like that. Her son absolutely adores it. So she persuaded me. She said, why don't you do a vocal album, you singing all the songs, and put it together so you don't have to zip around from CD to CD. I said, I'm not sure but my voice isn't great, and I'm not sure if that's going to work. But anyway, I've nearly finished that, and that will be coming out soon, just as a digital download, and then I'll probably start volume 6 in mind.
For those who are listening who want to find where they can find all your bits and pieces, where can we find your stuff?
On my website, modmusic.co.uk, and I'll take you to my website. And on there, you can have a look what's available. There's little pin badges, all kinds of stuff, and all the albums as well. As I said, the vocal one will be coming out in the next couple of weeks, I suppose.
Beautiful. We'll be sure to share it around with everybody when it comes out. But Mike, always a pleasure. Thank you for joining us. Go well and stay safe.
Thank you very much, Tom, and same to you.
Thank you, Tom Denham, for organising that chat, and thank you, Mike O'Donnell, for making the time to speak to us again here on the Rights on Track podcast. And Mr. O'Donnell is not done spoiling us just yet, because he's also gifted to us a newly recorded rendition of Toby, which we're going to listen to right now as part of our regular song break. Here we go. I never tire of hearing that song. That was Toby, originally written by Mike O'Donnell and Junior Campbell. You can find that on Mike's latest CD, which includes covers of all the classic Thomas songs from the original run of the show that we know and love. Now, though, it's time to head into Model Train Corner with Lachlan Kyle. And he has with him a very special guest who has also appeared on this podcast before. In fact, it is none other than Brendan Reese 10.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Lachlan's Model Train Corner. Today is another very special episode. We're doing an interview today. We have the awesome, the amazing, the very chaotic Brendan Reese 10. Brendan, how are we?
Hey, it's good to be here. Doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good. I like the introduction you gave me, though.
Thank you, I guess. Okay, so Brendan, tell us a little bit about...
The chaotic is what...
Yeah, no, definitely chaotic. Just some of the... Just, like mostly on your Instagram stories where you do, like, just the zoom-ins on, like... For example, James is on your shelf, you zoom in on his face with a funny filter or something, you do the weird, voice. Hey, how you doing? Something like that.
Hey, how you doing?
Yes, I love it. That's the chaos. I love that sort of energy that you have.
I love making stupid videos because I know at least one or two people will laugh at them. So that's my goal.
Yes, and they are awesome. That's the stuff that I love about just. Oh, it's awesome. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do?
Well, yeah, my name is Brendan. As you know. I've been making videos since 2008, and I haven't stopped since then. I think I probably found my footing for YouTube around 2016 or 17. I really knew what I wanted to do. But since then, I've been having an amazing time and I met so many friends through my channel and through my love for the Choo Choo Train, Thomas. And I couldn't be happier with that aspect because, I've come from, school. When I was in school, I didn't have many friends. Just due to the fact that, people change when you get to, the high school bits of your years. So I decided that I'm just going to go to school to just do my grades and go home and talk to my friends about trains with faces. And ever since then, I have never looked back. And, here I am.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what was your introduction into trains, railways, Thomas, anything? How did that begin?
That began when I was 2 or 3 years old. My mom got me a Thomas Wooden Railway figure 8 set. I believe it was the 2000 edition. So yeah, somewhere around there during the golden age of Thomas, right when Magic Railroad was on the horizon. I loved that figure 8 set. My grandparents and my mom's friends would buy me Thomas stuff. It was all wooden at first, a bit of Ertl. And then it grew from there, and I'd watch like those weird cheap home video train videos, not even just Thomas, just train videos about locomotives and how they work and just about trains in general. We went to railroads and such as well. But yeah.
So in particular for model railways, how did that come about?
Oh, well, I think I was always interested in model railways. I didn't understand them. I saw them as a kid. I saw Hornby stuff as a kid, in the shops, and it was wow, I would really like to have one of those. That just looks like what I see on screen. Because when I was a kid, Hornby Thomases, while they looked a little different, it was seeing a representation of Thomas or the Thomas characters that were on this realistic of a level reminded me of the show so much that thought process of wow, this looks accurate was there. So that was my thought process. And then I would, like I said, it was always there, but I could never have model trains specifically because my mom and my dad would always say, oh, they're so fragile, they would break the moment you touch them. So I was afraid to always own one. And that was a good way, I guess, to tell me to get me sway me away from model trains until I hit the certain age. But I believe when I turned 7 or 8, I got my hands on an actual Bachman Thomas circle, set, and that sadly only lasted I think a few weeks or a month or something, but that was my first introduction. And then a few years later, my parents saw that I matured a little bit and wasn't as rough with my toys and actually decided to care for my trains, and I got a model railway, and then I got a Bachman Thomas and Percy, and then it went from there. That was around 2007, I think. Around 2006, 2007, yeah. So it's been a while coming, but model trains have always kind of been there in my life.
Right, okay. What particular things will we see in your you've got a big collection now, haven't you?
Oh yeah, I'm looking at them right now. Recently I've been downsizing slightly. A lot of my models not all my models, but a good chunk of my models are kind of boxed up in a way, more of my realistic models or just all the other projects that I started or just things that I have yet to begin have been kind of stored away. But the models that I mostly film with or plan to film with are all up on a shelf on display. Most of my wagons, at least the British stuff, are up there as well. But yeah, the collection has grown, and I always look back at it and go wow, my collection has grown so big since a certain time point. I wish I had more than what I have currently, but I guess everyone kind of does. But I do have like a bunch of other hobbies as well, so like I don't just focus on Thomas all the time, but I feel like if I did focus more on Thomas than those other things, my collection would be way bigger. But I think for what I have currently, it is pretty good. I like what I have.
Okay, that sounds good. What kind
I
of...
wouldn't mind more, you know?
I think a lot of us we'd want more trains, but for some reason I look at for example, I don't know, Sam's trains. I look at how many he has. Like, how can you? Like, there's got to be a line. There's got to be a point where you say, okay, that's enough. I think I'll only buy like one or two a year or something.
I think it's because I think it is like one of those things where, like I said, I have multiple hobbies, so my interest especially spread out through about a bunch of different things. Where Sam's trains, because he has such a massive collection, he's been collecting them since he was like a kid.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
He just built a big collection, you know, over time. So, and I feel like that's his main hobby. And if model trains were my main hobby, which they kind of are, but if they were like my pure dead main hobby, I would have like probably triple the amount that I have. Like not even double, like triple. I would have so many.
So what kind of stuff have you got in your fleet, I guess?
Currently, it's mostly just, though I have most, if not the entire Bachman Thomas range currently. I don't have, like, you know, like the repaints. Oh, actually, I do have the repaints. I don't have, like, the yellow Rheneas, because I think that's the stupidest thing they could ever make. like they literally didn't even have to do that. There was no reason for yellow Rheneas.
How long did it show up for on screen? Like, less than 30 seconds?
Yeah, it was less than 30 seconds. Like, Busy Bee James had, like, well, I had more screen time, but like the reason Busy Bee James sold so well because it was a stupid meme and people liked it so much because they made fun of it. They bought it, and Bachman went, "Hey, we're gonna make more." But thank God they're actually gonna slow down. I don't think they're gonna be doing repaints at like often, like at all. I think it's gonna be a rarity kind of thing. But back to the Bachman models. I mostly have Bachman models. I have some customs here and there of Thomas characters, and then I have my realistic fleet for my movie project. And then I have a couple select things here and there. Like I have like I have a Hudson from Broadway Limited Imports or what they're called. I love that locomotive so much. It's like DCC. It has all the sounds and the whistles and everything. It's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, I love that thing. Mostly, yeah, I have currently sold off most of my my actual realistic engines that aren't Thomas-fied, just to help support my just to help support myself in general. But I do hope to eventually get back into just buying model trains where they're not Thomas characters, but they're just normal engines, because it's just, while I do love having the Thomas engines, it is cool to have stuff that's not the trains with faces, because it's just something nice to look at. Because I will admit, looking at the faces constantly is kind of like, I don't really want to look at these anymore.
Yeah, no, I think I'm pretty much the opposite. I only have...
Yeah, you're very much the opposite.
I only have Bachman Thomas, and that's it. Even the Hornby Thomas isn't mine. That's someone else's, but I just have that with me.
I know you do want to grow your Thomas army a little bit. I just did it the opposite way. It's just because I always wanted Bachman Thomas stuff. The electric trains, I've always wanted... I've wanted Thomas stuff, so that I've set out for that collection, and that's what I got. I feel like within the next maybe 4 or 5 years, I will probably grow a collection of just normal model trains. It won't be as big as the Thomas stuff, but I will hope to grow a bigger collection of just basic, just model, just engines that aren't Thomas.
Yeah.
Even if they're like real life bases, I would just prefer to have some realistic engines.
No, I'm probably in the same boat as well. I've looked for a few of the actual bases of the characters, because I want to start doing a railway series fleet, I guess.
Yeah, it just real quickly, it is crazy how much of a kick I've been seeing for the group and a lot of other people just start churning out like railway series stuff. Like Noah just out of nowhere just went, "I'm doing railway series."
That's right, and he's made so much cool stuff. I think it was. I did look at the normal Bachman stuff, and I was like, okay, I want to make some TV series models. But then I looked at people who made basically from scratch, the railway series stuff, and I thought I could probably have a lot more fun, doing a lot more modification, a lot more paint job, a lot more putting your decals on, and just doing it because no one has the same interpretation of anything in the railway series. You can do whatever you want pretty much.
Yeah, that's exactly, I think, the reason why people have gotten like a kick for it, and especially with people who have been in it for like ever, is that if you want, you can just do your own headcanon. Even if you're just modeling off of the actual Railway series canon, they can be your own interpretations of that canon. And that's like, that's the best part about it, is because there's so many different variations you can make. Even if it looks similar to someone else's, it's still your own model. Like, it could be the same body shell, but it's still your own version, because it's not going to look, it's not, like, while the body might be the same, the paint job and all the details, they're going to be different.
And even then with Thomas, for example, you've got people have used a long shell, a short shell, an E2 shell. There's so many things you can do, even with the individual models themselves. Even with Percy, there've been multiple interpretations because there are so many. That's the other thing as well. There are so many different illustrations of each character that you could do.
That's the best part about it. Even people who model, like, even if it's not TV series and you're just modeling Thomas in general, like, you can just make your own interpretation of Thomas. It doesn't even have to be Railway series or TV. It's just Thomas. And, like, that's the cool part about it, is that you could just model whatever the hell you want. Like, people have taken, like, Jinties or J70s and just made them into Thomas, and it works. One that I would really like to see is, Bluebell's basis. I'd love to see a Bluebell basis of Thomas.
That would be cool, yeah.
Yeah, he's short, small, but he has like a weird freelance like cartoon design to him, and it looks so. I love Bluebell's like design so much. Bluebell's basis is just so interesting. I love that basis.
Bluebell, as in
the Bluebell, the engine.
Oh,
like
right,
from the
like the
Railway.
P-class.
Yeah, the P. Oh, that's what they're. Yeah, P-class. That's what they are.
Yeah, that would work. That would work really well because he's nice and small as well. Just extend the tanks, and there you go. You got something that looks like an approximation of Thomas.
Yeah, you could even give it like extended side tanks. It's just its own thing. You could make Thomas out of almost any like 060.
Now that I think of it, I'll show you this. A friend has given me his J50 for me to paint up for him.
Oh God, I love the J50. Such an interesting little thing.
And that's it. That's his own headcanon that Thomas did. Well, the thought is that Thomas was supposed to be a J50, but Audrey or whoever created that little toy out of the broomstick never actually said it's supposed to be a J50. But that's his headcanon. You're right. Any 060 can work as Thomas, and that's the really cool thing about it as well, is that so many people have just looked at a locomotive that probably doesn't even really look like Thomas and be like, boom, that's Thomas now. I've painted in blue, given him the lining. There you go.
Yeah, it works. That's the thing that a lot of people, and recently I've been seeing a lot of people get a kick out of just making fun of the Strasbourg Thomas, and it's just like, I know it looks weird. Even I've had that opinion for so long, but once you see that engine in person, it changes your opinion entirely, because it's there. You're seeing a live steam Thomas, especially in America where we have just a bunch of dummy units.
Yeah.
And it's just, you see this live steam engine, you forget that it's like an engine with pistons, and he's a little long, he's a little weird looking, he's a little wonky, but like at the end of the day, you get so used to it and you're like, wow, I love this thing. Like, it's just, you fall in love with it, and it's just, and I can't get enough of that engine. It's just the same people who like the I forget what railway it's from, but it's the first Day Out with Thomas that they did. It's the one that Audrey officially like signed and everything.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I know which one you're talking about. Great. It's not the Great Central Railway, but I know which one you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. And he has the Railway series face.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Thomas is just like that. I don't think it looks great. But I bet if I were to see it in person or grew up with that Thomas, I would have a totally different opinion. It's the same opinion like with everybody else. Like people can hate the Strasbourg Thomas and people can hate that Thomas all they want, but I feel like once you see it in person, it just changes your opinion. It might only change it even slightly. You might just be like, yeah, it's better than I thought, but it changes. Like, being there in person is way different than just seeing it over your phone screen.
Yeah. I've had this conversation with people a lot as well. Like, there's something about the steam engine itself that kind of does that to you, where it gives you this feeling that you can't really get over, like you said, this phone screen. Like, I've never seen the actual Strasbourg Thomas myself. I haven't even actually seen where's the nearest local railway to me. They have a really weird looking Thomas at Puffing Billy. Do you know about that
I've
one?
seen the Puffing Billy one. That one is really strange, but I feel like that would the people that grew up with it would be like, yeah, it's weird, but I like it, you know?
Yeah. The funny thing about that, it's actually just a fiberglass shell put over another locomotive as well.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know how the Thomas at Strasbourg is done. It might be similar, or I think they completely like rebuilt it.
I remember seeing somewhere in a video or something that it started off life as a completely different locomotive, and then they just took it apart and rebuilt it into that or something. I remember seeing
because it was a porter class that
exactly
that Strasbourg turned it into, and a lot of people were mad about it. People even nowadays are still like salty about it, and I've seen some Thomas fans salty about it, and it's just like I swear when I read it up, it's just like that engine was on its last leg, but I know it was like still a functioning engine, but I could be completely wrong what I'm saying. Like don't quote me here what I'm saying. I'm just kind of saying what's off the top of my head. I have to read into it more, but I mean, at the end of the day, the engine is Thomas brings people into the hobby, and it brings people into the world of trains, and at a young age. And then Thomas is the reason why railroads are still alive to this day, and a lot of people seem to forget that, especially like the old farts who just the normies who don't really care. And, like, the normies, not even the old farts, just normies, just in general. I hate saying normies, but like that is the honest to God truth.
Yeah,
it's just they don't see it the way we do, and I think that's the beauty of it. It's just like, I don't know, it's just different views, different opinions.
I absolutely agree. A lot of people take for granted that, more or less, going right back to the railway series, that had a big influence on railway preservation. For example, the Talaclin. Audrey wrote stories based on events that he experienced there, and then they run Day Out with Thomas days specifically for those characters from the railway series because it all started there.
Yeah, and they have like the license, and like they have like a contract like with Audrey. So like if the show or Mattel wanted to do anything about it, they can't because Audrey signed it. So it's just like they're like, oh well. But I love that. I can't wait to visit to go during a Scarlet Days or whatever they do at some point.
Yeah, I've definitely got to look at going to one of those myself sometime. Even if it's not like an Audrey extravaganza, just like just to go there and be, where he was and experience those things that he experienced.
Yeah, I hope to go this summer for the Audrey extravaganza. If I can't go this year, then I will 100% go next year. But I'm tired of pushing it off because I've been wanting to go for like 5-6 years just to see my friends and everything, and then just visit the country in general. And I know the pandemic has really set like its foot down, but recently with like a lot of stuff being lifted, I'm feeling more optimistic about it. But I'll keep my fingers crossed.
Yeah. So you make up sets and layouts and sort of film sets. I don't know where I'm going with that. Film sets and things.
Just sets for filming. Yeah.
For your videos, which look a lot of them look amazing. So. How do you go about that? How do you go about making film sets? How do you go about making film sets and filming?
When it goes around building a film set, what I used to do is I had like this long foam strip. It's anywhere, I think it's between like 7 and 9 feet long. Like 2-inch thick, like 3 inches thick foam strip. And I build sets on that. It's not wide enough, I'll say. Nowadays I'm actually building my sets on a foldable table, and the foam is way wider now, so I have a lot more room to work with. But I build it on a foam set, and I build whatever I'm supposed to. And the thing I have a problem with, I figured out especially recently, is I would just kind of build a set for what the script says. Like if it's just a yard, I would just build a yard. I wouldn't really use any references because I didn't have a lot of buildings, and now I have a lot more buildings and scenery and stuff. It's just I haven't been able to. Well, I haven't been able to put anything out on YouTube recently that would show that off. But I'd go around just kind of doing whatever the script kind of says, and then just build the set based off that. So if it's just Thomas chugging along or something. It doesn't even say countryside. I'll just see him chugging along. I'll probably build like a countryside set with maybe some buildings here and there. But it really does depend on what the script says. But more recently, I've been kind of trying to push myself where if it's a book adaptation, especially with I have a video coming out in June that's been delayed for quite some time, but I'm hoping to get it out. That I based the sets off the illustrations and tried to base off any sets that weren't seen in the book close to the illustrations. And that'll kind of give off like I wanted to give off like an Owen Bell kind of style. And I love Owen Bell's artwork, so that's what I want to go for.
Yeah.
But I think going into my current stuff, I'm going to aim to kind of model what's seen in the model series and in the show, and maybe even do like Railway series with the TV series stuff, because the Railway series stuff just looks pretty, and it would be nice to just make that in general.
Yeah.
But yeah, going around sets is really weird because it's an up and downhill battle with me, and just figuring out what I want to do. But like if it's a remake, I try to make the sets kind of similar to what's seen on screen. But if it's just like I said, like an own custom story, it's just kind of me just making something that just comes to my mind, and I don't really think twice about how important it is to keep like the consistency for like an actual location. So that's kind of important. I mean, it is kind of fun to just build whatever you want, but if you want to have consistency, it's probably better to keep that mindset.
When you build your sets, are your sets like, do you make them permanent? Like, do you glue and fix trees, or are they like...
Everything's free to move around. The ballast is the hardest thing to work with. It's just because like its ballast is all loose, so it's nothing is ever glued down. If anything is ever glued down, it's specifically because it kept falling over and making me really mad. So I would just do that instead. I know for most of the sets, they are mostly made to be seen what's on camera, and if I were to move the camera too far away from a certain angle that I had originally had set, we would lose like that whole, like vision, and you would lose like that what the picture is supposed to be. I can't figure out the actual word, but yeah, they're all made from a certain angle. Like trees have little pins in them, so they can just stick right into the grass mat, into the foam. Same with fences. Buildings and stuff, sometimes I have nails holding them down on the sides just to keep them from wiggling in case if I accidentally bump the table. But most of the time, everything is just kind of like the track is pinned down. Basically everything's pinned down in general. It's all able to be removed with ease.
Okay, yeah. How do you go about cleaning up the ballast afterwards? Like,
it's a pain, but it's kind of satisfying because I use a vacuum cleaner that it's a big vacuum cleaner. It has like a little where everything's all collected in this like plastic tube, and I got to make sure that thing is dust free, because if I'm vacuuming up like the ballast constantly, the ballast will get dirty, and then that'll be dirty for the tracks, and that's just way too much cleaning for the engines and stuff, because the engines, the wheels, they pick up the dirt, so I got to make sure that that's clean. So that's the hardest part that I don't like about doing sets. But when I just vacuum them up, and then I throw them in a bowl, and then I just put it back in the container wherever the ballast came from, just to reuse. It's a process. Sets take a while to make. They're a lot quicker to take down than they are to build. But it's still a process that I don't recommend to everybody.
So do you have any techniques that you can tell us about in terms of scenery, or in your case, filmography?
I guess it does. One that comes to mind is that I put the most detailed stuff closer to the camera and closer to where the camera's going to be viewing it, and the less detailed stuff goes further away. And I think that one saves time and money, because you don't have to buy everything realistically. I mean, you honestly could, but you'd just be spending a lot of money doing it. So to save money, you put the most realistic stuff as close to the camera as possible, and up to about the medium ground, and then that's when you transition into like less detailed and less detailed. Especially like with a tree, if you want like a tree to be really close to the camera, say like you have it like on like the side of the screen or something like that on your camera, I would recommend using like a piece of like a twig or something, because then you can see like it has like bark detail on it, so like you can use that for the foreground, and whatever's further away in the background, you just use the model trees and just like the crappy stuff that you buy at the hobby store and stuff.
In a way, yeah, it's kind of like forced perspective.
Exactly. It's false and forced perspective is kind of it's like two different things.
I remember sort of going on in that vein. I remember seeing a layout at a model train show. What they did in the foreground was everything was HO or 00, can't remember. And that's where the eyes were. But they had like a mountain background the further back you looked, and instead of using like 00 or HO buildings all the way in the back, they were N scale or something smaller than that. So it looks like it looks like there's distance. It looks like there's actual three-dimensional. Exactly.
It is so helpful, especially for even like massive layouts, like, you know, like the Northlands layout or like Miniature Wonderland. The layout in Germany, it's so massive that like I don't know if they have to do forced perspective, but I feel like they do anyway, because it's just like forced perspective helps portray and make the land look so much bigger than it actually is. And I recommend that people that, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people do know this, but I recommend it anyway for people who do sets and videos with sets in general, that they should try forced perspective. I haven't done it much, but when I have done it, it does look really good. And it's like, it's kind of a game changer, because it's just like you can do so much with the smaller scenery in the background. You can make your sets look massive.
Right, yeah. Definitely something I do. I haven't built myself a layout at all yet, but it's definitely something that I do want to look at having a go at, just to, you know.
Oh God, I would love to have a layout.
Space is a thing, isn't it? It's a luxury.
If I, honest to God, if I didn't make videos, at least videos to the amount that I do, I would 100% have a layout of some kind. But because of the, like they said, the videos I do, it's just like, I don't know. I gotta pick my poison. So
yeah,
and I pick doing sets, and I don't really regret it much, because we have events like, you know, like the Thomas and his fans events, and then we have like the train shows where you can bring your models, or I can have my models displayed and running on those layouts. So my models at some points can get run-ins. I do have like, you know, like Bachmann Easy Track, and I can set them up on the floor, you know, and run my models. I know people hate that, running models on the floor, but I always make sure my floors are clean and everything, and I always check over my engines, you know, always. But, you know, dirt and grime's always going to get in there, but I always try my best to take care of my engines, no matter even what you see, like through like busted buffers, or, you know, like my silly videos of me throwing around a model. It's never like the actual models I probably film with. It's always just like some gumpy, gummed up like Thomas model that I've had around for ages.
Yeah,
I love my models, I really do, even when they're a pain in the butt and don't want to work when I'm filming. I do still love them.
Speaking of models, do you have a favorite one, or is there one that, I don't know, that's been announced recently that you're excited for, or anything like that?
Okay, so one that I have that I really like, oh no, that's not a good question, because there's a lot.
That's how we do it here on the podcast. We ask the tough questions.
That's how we do it, because like I've recently grown to really love I haven't revealed him yet, but I've been working on my Neville, my 00 scale Neville. I'm giving it the treatment of you know, getting rid of most of the detail and making it as TV series accurate as possible. Right. Very similar to what Green has done with his stuff.
With Murdoch and Arthur, yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. He's looking really good. I can show you really quickly. I know the people on the call aren't going to be able to see this on the podcast, but
you heard it here
with my
first.
crappy camera. We got Neville right here.
Wow, he looks so good. Oh, you've even gotten rid of the washout plugs are still there. Does he have the washout plugs in the TV series? Those things that like on the side of the
right here.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
he has those in the TV series. What's really cool about it is that they used the top heads of hex screws for his front buffer beam, and the like you said, the little vents on the side of the firebox. Those are literally just the tops of small hex screws.
Oh wow, I didn't even know that. That's really cool.
Those reference photos really come in handy. And when I zoomed in, I was like, those aren't perfect circles, and they're hex screws. So it's pretty cool.
Right. Okay.
Anyway, like you were saying, favorite model. Like I said, Neville's becoming a really quick favorite of mine. Honestly, there's so many to choose. Oh,
it's like choosing your favorite child as well, isn't it?
It's because I love all of them. I mean, well, not all of them. I do have favorites. Honestly, I might have to go with my movie Thomas, which I haven't properly revealed. People at train shows and people at events have seen it, but I haven't properly posted him. But he is definitely becoming one of my favorites, and I love him. I love him a lot. It's just because it's like my own Thomas, and I can't wait for people to properly see it once it's officially revealed later on during the events and whatnot. But for upcoming model that has been announced, Oh gosh, I'm very excited for the new releases that Bachman's coming out with, like, Daisy and Peter Sam. I'm very excited for those, but I'm really excited for Ryan. Ryan, I'm very excited for, and because of his price point, and he's actually more expensive than Daisy, that kind of proves the point that hopefully that he will have his pipes, and his extra details will probably be 3D, and I'm very excited for that. And I hope they go that route and they're not molded. Because if they're molded, I'm going to have a big problem with that model, and I'm probably not going to buy it.
Yeah.
But I'm very optimistic.
Yeah, no. We haven't seen any samples of it yet, which is surprising. Mm-hmm. They just randomly dropped Daisy, they randomly dropped Peter Sam and Sir Handel, but Ryan's been announced, 2 years now?
No, he's been announced for I think this summer will be 2 years. If not 2 years, it'll be a year.
Yeah. We still haven't seen any samples
of it. It will be 2 years. I think we'll be seeing samples of him very soon. I know that the all model train companies, just companies in general, having problems with like the shipping delays and stuff overseas. So that's understandable. I really hope to see him very soon though, because I'm very excited to see what they have in store for him.
Thank you everyone for listening to this episode of Model Train Corner, but don't go anywhere because this is only one of 2 parts, so stay tuned for next week where we continue the shenanigans with Brendan. Thanks for listening.
That was part 1 of Lachlan Kyle's chat with Brendan Reese 10. Keep an eye out for our next episode when you will hear the second part of that conversation. I, for one, am certainly looking forward to it. We hope you are as well. We also want to thank Mike O'Donnell for once again sponsoring this chapter of the podcast and for having a chat to us about his new album and other stuff besides. And we must thank as well Isaac and Jay Racer, who so kindly filled in to do our regular television series of reviews for us. They covered the TV stories Percy's Big Mistake and Thomas, Emily, and The Snowplow. I'm still Parry. Please be sure to join us all again for episode 65 of Right on Track.
You've been listening to Right on Track. This podcast was hosted by Connor Jonas, Tom Parry, Lachlan Kyle, and Tom Denham. The audio producers for this podcast were Jason Evans, Harry Hughes, Ashley DeGroot, and Frederick French Pounce. The supervising producers are Connor Jonas and Tom Parry. The executive producer is Tom Denham. Visit rightontrackpodcast.org for more information plus bonus material, and be sure to follow us on social media. On Facebook at facebook.com/rightontrackthomaspodcast, on Twitter at OnTrackThomas, and Instagram at RightOnTrackPodcast.